there's no one right way to play the game. We're in a world full of magic and dragons and wizards and fantasy.
And a Dark Souls boss.
There's no, it has to be this way. Rules lawyer versus rule of cool.
Magic when wet is a phrase that we have thrown around here a lot.
I love this. How does magic change based on environmental factors? A combat encounter that wasn't about combat. You don't have to just make fight HP versus HP hit each other. You can change up the game in so many different ways. Welcome back to another episode of Above the Table. I am your host, Seb, and this is our resident DM, Cody, back for another bit of nonsense talk in the TTRPG realm. Okay, today we're highly caffeinated. We've shot one episode before this, and we're going in for a quick extra one so we can get some more content out there for you guys. And today, the base idea is kind of, is there one way to play the game? What is the real approach? Rules lawyer versus rule of cool. And we're gonna come in for something fun at the end, which we call magic when wet.
Magic when wet.
There's also gonna be some rambles along the way, as we always tend to go off.
Always. Always.
So, welcome back to Above the Table, and let's jump into it.
Rules lawyer versus rule of cool.
All right, guys, so yeah, we're gonna kick straight into rules lawyer versus rule of cool. As usual, we kind of agree. We've found our table, this is why we play together, but it is a topic out there. What do you think?
Okay. Me, it's no question about it. I can be bullied to do anything. I can be bullied to do anything.
We've done it.
I am a rule of cool lawyer. If a player brings me, like, oh, I want to do this, and like my character's going to do that, that, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm happy to try and mitigate something like that. But there's also the mechanics exist for a reason. I am by no means a rules lawyer. I do not like to ride the very fucking straight line of this is what the book says, ergo, that is what must be done. No, I have destroyed everything that I've ever created and built it back into my own insane image. And I think rule of cool is not only a choice, I feel like it's a necessity.
I think, isn't there like one of the opening pages in, say, the DM guide or the players is the rules are here as a guide.
It's a DMG, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the phrasing, but
I can't remember the exact
like,
words, yeah.
These rules are here as a guide for you to break. You know, like take what you want, leave what you don't, and make the game work for you. Like,
yeah. Which is why it's so peculiar to me that some people are so, like, they feel like that's what's on the page, therefore that's what must be done. It's so peculiar to me. I don't understand it. And that's not me, like, I don't want to feel like I'm shit talking or disrespecting anyone that's how they play. And, you know, there probably is a table for you and you've probably got players that play your game and that's fine. I'm happy that you have that. I just don't understand why some people let it interfere with the success of the game and the fun aspect. You know what I mean? Like, there are some times where players have asked me they want to do something and I've had to go, oh, no, not really. Like, a prime example is in episode 6 or 7, where the party had to go fight Mr. K in his room. Sky playing Zero wanted to throw her body over Zeph to protect them from the absolute beatdown that Mr. K was about to put on him. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but mechanically, that doesn't actually do anything because there's nothing to say that he can't reach around and punch Zeph while you're on the ground.
Or you could twist it and say, okay, they get half cover. Or something. Like, there's...
I think I might have said that, actually.
I think there's ways, and I think you do it really well, where it's not just a yes or a no. It's
yes and?
Okay, how would this work, and what mechanic can we apply to make that something that still has to happen?
It's called yes anding or no butting.
Yeah. And it happened yesterday, last session, so it would have been episode 16. We're fighting some monsters that go kablooey. And I cast the spell first, so I didn't ask the question before casting. I was like, I'm going to do this, and this is the hope. I cast blight.
It was blight, yeah.
Yeah, and the description of blight sort of says that something withers, and I'm like, can I make this thing sort of wither to death so we're not aggravating the thing? And the answer wasn't yes, you can, or no, it's not going to work that way. It was roll Arcana to see how well you can
Mitigate
that spell.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a straight yes, it wasn't a straight no, or yes, because that's cool, or no, because that's the rules. It was all right, let's make this a skill challenge.
I feel like making your characters roll skill challenges for certain tasks is always a surefire way to mitigate something you're unsure on. But some DMs fall into a bit of a trap where the player will roll exceptionally high, but then they just decide that it's not going to work.
Just don't let them roll.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Don't let them roll if it's not going to work, because that's not fair.
Or inform from the get-go that this is determining, like, you're not going to succeed, but we can determine how close you get to it or how badly it goes wrong.
Exactly. We did that last night. The new system that I've got in place for mitigating travel, because we do a lot of traveling in our camp, which is hilarious to me for some reason. I didn't expect it to happen, but it did. We had to travel a lot. The first 5 episodes of our campaign are quite long, and it's quite stretched out traveling episodes, and I don't really enjoy that as much now as I did back then. So I like the main guts of the story. I turned the entire thing into a skill challenge.
Yeah.
And God, it was easy.
I think it worked well as well, because we were moving through an area of our map that is probably the safest, the most well protected. You're not going to be coming into wild situations and all that. It's moving through farmland between trading towns, so it's going to be more.
Yeah,
all right, this is an open road. You might run into a couple of things, but there's no need to do stuff too intensely.
Exactly.
If we wanted to interject with role play situations, we could have, but it was easy to get that done.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring the role play into. Every couple of days we stop in a town, and there was an opportunity to do a bit of extra. Or
that was always a thing. So, like, I think I had it was like, okay, I roll a d20 at the beginning of the day. That determines if the DC goes up by 2 or by 4 or by 0, because like the weather's very rampant in our homebrew world, which was awesome because we did get one where it went up to like 17 or something, which is pretty high for a proficiency challenge. And you know, and I was like, you can utilize your class abilities if you've got features like with your map case.
I have a magic item that helps with finding direction if you roll high enough, so that got to help. Anything can then give me.
It gave you advantage,
of not advantage. It dropped the difficulty.
That's right. I took away the weather roll.
Weather roll.
That's right. And then when you guys stopped in towns, there was a little bit of interaction there, and then there was a little bit of interaction at the next town, and it was that's something where it's like. Going back, the reason I brought it up was what you said is you were always going to get to where you needed to go. This skill check is just going to determine how good of shape you get there, how long it takes, etc., etc.
But like, I think you do really well when we put forward ideas of rule of cool stuff generally.
Yeah.
If it's in a roleplay circumstance, I think you're usually just like, yep, it happens. That's cool. Combat, you've got to mix things up. I think for me, a big stopping point as a DM, if I know the thing they're asking is covered by another feat or skill or spell that they particularly don't have, I probably won't allow it, because that negates anyone then needing that ability. So I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I know that if someone wants to do something and I'm like, well, no, you can't get advantage at close range because that's the bowmaster or whatever it was.
Bowmaster.
You know, people like, if someone pitches something though that is just a particular skill, like a grapple thing, it's like, well, no, this class gets that. It then makes it a bit unfair, unless the circumstances are very particular.
Yeah.
You don't want to take away from one class's abilities or someone who's taken a feat to be able to do something just for someone else to be able to do it because they ask the question. I feel like that's where a line can be often drawn there.
Yeah, it's very true. There's got to be a point where like skill proficiencies come into play with, like, you know, rule like rules versus like rule of cool to like what the rules is or raw rules is written. Your characters get skill proficiencies based on their class for that reason. There are particular things that your class will be good at that will allow you to do those things. You know what I mean? So
Even
like
some things that only your class can do.
yeah, exactly.
As the halfling that I am, I can hide behind another character and be in the same square. If someone else just wanted to do that, it would take away from them. Why did I pick that?
Yeah,
Thing?
exactly.
If
exactly
anyone
right.
could do that, why would I pick that? You know, so you start to nerf other skill sets if you make it too open to rules.
Like halfling luck, reroll ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that's such a niche ability too, because like Georgia literally explained it, because she's played 2 halfling characters, and she goes, every time I fail a roll, it's because I roll a 2 or a 3, not a 1, and I can't re-roll it. And it's
Or
like,
you get like me, and I think it was episode 2 or 3, rolling nat 1, then nat 1. And I think we've decided with halfling luck that I can't just keep re-rolling the ones.
no, I think since it got errated on the digital copies that you only get 1 free re-roll and you must take the second one. Yeah.
And I think that's fair, because if you're going to get 2, the odds of getting 2 natural ones in a row are like 20 times 20. It's like 1 to 400 or something ridiculous.
And there's like Weapon Master as well, which is like you can re-roll 1s and 2s on damage die, but you must take the second roll, like that sort of stuff. Yeah, you don't. It's okay. D&D is all about theft. Let's be honest, right? You're allowed to steal bits and pieces from other rings, other like circles of skills and all that sort of stuff. But when you start encroaching on like other skill sets, it becomes a problem.
I think particularly if you have that class at the table.
Yeah.
If I tried to stealth and do things, that would be taking away from Wisemon a
Rogue. Yep, exactly.
Someone
right.
tried to start doing stuff that as a cleric I get, or as my racial feats that I get, or as the feats that I've picked as I've leveled up. It's like, why did I waste that level up on that feat if I could just do it? You know?
Exactly.
That's where the line's drawn. But also, if something's cool enough, to do it.
Yeah, Seb mentioned it before. There's been instances where if certain characters do something that I don't even think it's necessary that they roll for it, I don't. I just tell them, no roll. I literally, the words leave my lips, no roll necessary, because I think that just happens. There's also instances where there's been dialogue where people have just delivered such good dialogue. If there's still an element of chance, I'll let them roll with advantage or something like that. But there are some instances where people have just said something and I'm like, that's just how it works. Now I'm not even going to make you roll for that because you basically just spoke in nat 20. Like, that's how that works.
I think there is a line change as well between campaigns and one-shots here.
Uh-huh.
So as someone who, for our channel, is mostly just run one-shots, if someone wants to do something wild in a one-shot, go for it.
I did it.
It's not going to change the long-term effects of the game. We can ignore it in the main campaign, even if they're semi-tangential to the main campaign, which we've kind of done for all our stuff is set in the same world. Those rules don't have to apply to the main campaign either. One-shots are going to be played in one big batch. Let something cool happen and move on. So it's a fun game day. It's not as much about holding long-term lore and consistency.
Exactly, and you see it too in those sort of things. Like people on here would know, I'm a huge Dimension 20 fan as well for Critical Role, as well as Critical Role. And when Matt Mercer went over to guest to do Brennan going over to do Exandria in the past, Matt went over and did A Crown of Candy in the past, because I love A Crown of Candy. It's my favourite series of the lot, and I still go back and watch it to this
I've
day.
really got to watch that. I've seen clips. And
Game of Thrones meets Candyland, hell yeah. But I noticed specifically that in that mini arc that Matt did, he was way more lenient on the rules than what he is on Critical Role. And you instantly know why. It's because it's a shorter form narrative.
And it doesn't.
Rule of Cool transcends campaign length. Mm-hmm. It's just, you just find calibers for it.
Yeah.
But
again, if we're doing a long-term campaign, if you let us get away with something in episode 5 and then episode 25 we want to do it again, if you turn around then and say that's not possible,
what the fuck, man?
canonically it doesn't make sense in the story.
Yeah.
So when you are playing a long-term campaign, canon does matter a little bit more. You can always retcon and you can change stuff. Sometimes it has to happen. Sometimes something needs to be nerfed.
I had to retcon the date in my game 4 episodes in.
But sometimes things do need to be changed. I think as a smart DM, you can usually find a way to make it happen canonically that it changes. But there's always going to be little things like that. But
several instances, like one where, for the sake of the campaign, I skipped ahead 2 days. because it just we all agreed it just made no sense to role play 2 extra days to get to the next bit, which was the gala.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think it's, for our table, it works well. We are roleplay heavy at our table, as we discussed in the last episode. So having Rule of Cool plays into roleplay a lot, because there are moments, for example, hasn't happened in game, but imagine your rogue sneaks up on a guard, gets a perfect stealth attack, and says they want to like cut their throat from behind and do some stealth kill. They roll 10 damage, but the guard has 12 HP. Just rub out that 12. Oh, you killed him. Done. Like, sometimes the exact rule of a number roll or something, it's like, if something's going to be a cool cinematic moment, like that tells this story, that's the whole point, is to tell a collaborative story, not to, oh, well, this hit the rules.
Or do what I did and give your rogue a dagger that does 2d12 poison damage on a critical hit. That guard is definitely going to fucking die.
But, like, even if if it was rolled really poorly, like, sometimes it's just more about that story moment.
I can agree, and I can attest to that. I'm a bit of a HP hussy. The only hit point that matters is the last one, and I stand by that phrase. Mm-hmm. To me, I love the idea of a rogue coming up and like landing an absolute merc shot and then describing, but you were only off by a fraction of an inch. And the guards, but
if that's cool,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I like to think that I can word it well enough to make it sound cool. But also, I always treat those sort of instances as a surprise round, which means it's not initiative, and then they get to roll. And of course, the rogue's always going to go before a town's guard. Their dexterity is like +0, whereas a rogue's got like by that point a rogue's already at like even at first level, it's like +3 or +4.
See, I'm a shameless number fudger when it comes to being a DM.
Fair enough.
If a villain still has 100 hit points, but the party's all about to die and there's some epic moment where the big swing comes down, I might just say that was the last hit.
I've heard some people say that they actually give the boss no hit points and they just push it until...
I personally don't think there's a problem with that.
No, I think that's okay. If that works for you and you feel okay with that, that's fine.
I do think also, though, a lot of this would play into how you're playing. So we play Milestone. If you were playing XP, these would probably be a lot more...
XP requires it to be number crunchy.
Yeah, because otherwise it's unfair who gets what and who gets the kills if they're not actually rolling well enough to gain that. But we don't like XP leveling. I think most people I've talked to are more on the Milestone side of things.
If you're an XP leveler, there's no urgency for the party to actually go off and do the adventure and level up normally.
Yeah.
They just grind a bunch of rats into a fine dust, and by the time they go to face the BBEG, they're already demigods.
And if you number crunch it and do it real strict, people in the party will be at different levels, and that's not fun.
Yeah, I know. That's why, which is why it always baffles me whenever I see people like put up, they're like, oh yeah, like my rogue's level 14, but our wizard's only level 10. I was like, why? Like, I can understand maybe one or 2 levels difference. Like Sky is a prime example.
Certain things have happened. If one player has had a lot more bigger things that have played into their milestones, whereas others haven't really pushed their characters in any way, something might happen, or canonically story-wise, something might... Again, Sky being that, I feel like that is almost a rule of cool, because something cool happened that pushed Sky into that next capability, which could happen to anyone at the table.
And she could have said no.
Anyone at the table could have said yes.
Yeah, she buckled, so it would have been a different ballgame all the way around.
And I don't think...
It's been really fun.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot of that. Rules lawyering. Look, there's a place for it. There's a place for everything at the right table in the right situation. But I, for one, am here for a cool collaborative story. So if something is more interesting, the rules can go out the window for me as a DM.
Yeah, I agree. If you want a real rule crunchy system, I definitely recommend, like, if you like something that has a bit more guardrails, for lack of a better term, go play Adventures League. That's like the official like league D&D that like a lot of game stores do, and like they have like databases on like people that are in the Adventurers Leagues and stuff. Go do that. If you want something that's way more, like, I played one Adventure League game ever, and 90% of the books that I bought on D&D Beyond were not allowed.
Yeah.
Because they're not Forgotten Realms. So I only got away with playing a Harangon because technically the Witchlight Carnival is Forgotten Realms, so I was allowed. But I wasn't allowed to use Theros, like I couldn't play an Oath of Glory Paladin. Like it was if you want something that's real rules heavy, Adventure League sounds more your speed. But
And aren't you allowed to only build your character from, like, it's like from 2 books? You can't just pull things from a million different... You're allowed the core rules and then 2...
they've
books.
changed. I think they changed that recently because there's so many setting books that fall into the Forgotten Realms that they allow those.
Yeah, okay.
But it's only a lot of them now in brackets just say Forgotten Realms only.
Yeah,
So
which
you
makes
can't
sense.
do you can't do Ravnica, you can't do Theros, can't do Taldore.
Yeah.
Or Wild now, like none of that stuff, which is fine. But again, if you're into that sort of stuff, that's more your speed, I think. Otherwise, I think personally, Rule of Cool is the only way to play.
And we come back to our table. You can bring anything from any 5e compatible.
I'm super open about what comes to our table.
Yeah, we have all kinds of third party and things being mixed in, and
Yeah, like I'm doing stuff for Sky right now for Zero. I did some stuff for Monica that I stole from the Illrigger, the unrevised Illrigger, the superior version, MCDM.
then we've got our own custom classes and races that we're working on that we're going to bring into it as well. So
Yeah.
homebrew itself is almost a rule of cool, I think.
Yep, exactly. Like we're doing homebrew weapons, you've got homebrew magic items, really cool, all of it. But that kind of leads into, but also kind of covers the overall topic, which is the one way to play argument.
One way to play. Your fun is wrong.
So we've dealt with this a lot, and what really brought this one up, which we tried to talk about one time, but all of our cameras were blurry, so we ended up cutting that episode. The one way to play the game, which is a bit gatekeepery out there. There's a lot of that in the community. I feel like it is a bit rules lawyery, those people. But what really inspired it from us was... Whoops, something's buzzing on my phone. 1 second. It's not a number I know, so someone sold my information. I built a full dungeon crawler style modular maze setup. I have plans to run a one-shot in this maze, and I have specific rules. So I didn't bring all them up, mention them in my video while I'm building it. It was more just showing people, if you want to make a cool big maze, here's how I did it for pretty cheap for something that looks awesome. And I'll throw a few clips up in here because I think it was one of the cooler basic builds I've done. One comment I got, I did get a few of these, but one in particular was one guy that was raving, or just going on.
Raging's the word.
About how, why would you bother? Your players will just burn it down or cut their way through it. Like, this is stupid. And I was like, well, fair enough, if that's your game, you probably aren't going to want to build this whole building. But then I said, I'm like, just put your DM hat on. Maybe it can't be burned, maybe it can't be cut, maybe it's magical. Maybe there's a brick wall that the maze grows on, so they can't just burn through it. Like, there's a lot of ways you could explain it. He's like, well, they'll just climb it, and then this. And I'm like, maybe it's magical, and as you climb, it just seems to keep growing and growing and growing, you know? There's ways to get around that. And he started going nuts. He's like, you're just cutting your players off. If they come up with a way to get through it that's burning it down, they should be able to. They can just burn the whole maze down. That'll kill all the monsters and all the treasure will be fine. And I'm like, man, if your only answer to life is burn it down, that's not the fun way to play the game.
Yeah, and also seek help.
But like, fair enough, that's how he wants to play. By all means, let your mates play that way. You guys can burn it to the ground and move on. That's not how everyone wants to play the game. And the part that really kind of... Look, it didn't irk me. I fished him along for more engagement. I just kept responding and trolling a little bit and got more comments. But a lot of other people commented on it too, and we're talking about... There's a lot of ways you could do this. Ours in particular is going to be in the Feywild, so there's a lot of wild magic going on there. So, yeah, the maze might grow. It might be unburnable. It might fight back.
People just neglect simple workarounds. Imagine it like this, right? Imagine it. The ranger decides he wants to try and climb over the hedge, and he begins to climb. No matter how far and he looks down behind him, and he's like 30 stories up. But he looks up, and it's always right there. You can get really wonky with it.
And I think if you build this, you establish this,
yeah,
it adds to it. But it really played back to me that this guy was so mad about it that he's like, you're cutting everyone off. I'm like, there's not one way to play this game.
I actually, it's so funny you bring that up. You just pulled something from my brain. I had something exactly like this that I had to deal with. Recently, I got approached to actually run a D&D game for a Bucks party. So, I printed the Big Boss mini and I bought my own minis. I brought the terrain. They paid me to run it for them. It was like 5.5 hours long. And it was great. And it was based on a bit of lore that I dropped in our campaign early on as a folklore kind of thing that I wanted to do. And I built it up and I loved it. And one of the segments is they go to the segment of forest called the Deadwood, and there's a lot of fog on the ground. And the thing is, they have to step into this very obviously magical haunted forest. And the second they get in, the fog slowly rises like water until eventually they can only see 1 foot in front of their face. So they can see themselves, they can't see anything else. Before they stepped in, they decided to tie their ropes around each other's waist. Smart move, right? All good. And the ranger was like, oh, but I can't be lost in magic unless it's magic. And I was like, well, guess what, buddy? This is magic. So one of the players goes, oh, I start pulling on the rope. And I was like, you start pulling on the rope and it's coming towards you and it just won't stop. And he goes, what happens if I let go? He goes, if I let go, it instantly just goes back to being taut. And the only way out of it was magic light. If you lit a torch, it wouldn't work, but the cleric cast light, you could see the light. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's a very simple way to get around it. I knew that if there wasn't a player that could cast a magic light spell, I probably would have let the torch work, but they would have been way further away. Yeah. But you mitigate that on the spot.
We're in a world full of magic and dragons and wizards and fantasy.
And a Dark Souls boss.
It has to be this way. I think the one important thing is try to establish those rules.
Yes, exactly.
And don't just make them up to cut your players off. Don't ex machina this, don't just throw it in next to like, oh, they thought of something I didn't think of. If they did, great. But the same, for the Feywild game, I had a whole concept of how a certain puzzle would be defeated. And no one was clicking onto it. But then Mon did something...
Oh, the monk thing.
...else. Yeah. And I'm like, I love that. That's now the answer.
Oh, was that when the forest kept wigging us out and she meditated, spent a key point to
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I'd put vibes down to give the answer, but no one was quite picking up on it because they were focusing on the red herrings too much.
Yeah,
but Mon did something that I just, I'm like, yep, that she gets the answer, or she gets a version that we can tweak from that to this is the solution now. Because it was cool.
It was cool.
But it's that, again, there's no one way to play. Someone had been too strict on that and oh, well, no, this was not the answer. They didn't find it. It's like, no one's having fun that way.
Yeah. It cuts the enjoyment.
And just because something works for your table doesn't mean other people want to play it that way. By all means, play it however you want. Burn the maze down. That's cool. If that's how your players have a good time, go ham. Not everyone wants to play that way. I know for a fact our table would have much more fun doing a dungeon crawl style game.
Yeah.
Through a giant hedge maze with puzzles and tricks and traps and curses, and we're going to enjoy that more. So I can easily put in some establishing rules if they can't get through the maze and no one's going to care or question it. If you've got the kind of players that are going to get mad at that, that's probably not the kind of encounter for that table.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is that there's no one right way to play the game. You know your table, you know the people you play with, or you will get to know them, and you'll understand what works for you and your lot to get the best out of that game.
Exactly. Best way to put it. Well, that brings up a good point, though, is the effectiveness of, using, in that twat's response, burning the maze down, oh, but it's magic, etc., etc. Magic when wet is a phrase that we have thrown around here a lot. And
I love this.
It is very relevant, especially to our table, and it might be relevant to yours.
Magic when wet. How is magic affected by the environment?
The concept of the magical abilities and responses outside the core system, what it does.
So based on how does magic change based on environmental factors, emotional factors, current situation, like, not every spell is going to work rules as written, depending on the environment you're in. And I don't think there's a problem with that, because I think you can use it to give things strength and weaknesses. But they have to be fairly logical based or put forward in a rule of cool way that makes sense.
Exactly. We had like a prime example. Like, it's funny enough, the two instances that I have documented in my brain were both when I was players for you specifically.
I play it heavily. Like, I pull a few things from, I think it really got me thinking about it.
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. So when you throw an ice spell down, if there's water on the ground, it creates a slippery surface. If somewhere is full of water and you throw an electricity spell down, it'll spread the electricity. So it's got me thinking on so many other terms. So if we were underwater, in the water, how's a fire spell going to work?
True. I can.
It could still work, but it might work differently.
It might be a little bit weaker or something, maybe.
Or it might boil the water around them. Like, it can add flair.
Oh yeah, put yourself at risk. That's all. Because I remember Vincent, my tiefling blood wizard. He ran up, stuck his hands into the water of the swamp, and cast lightning bolt. And instead of it being a line, it ended up being like a 15-foot radius.
It was less distance, but it spread more. So,
and I killed a bunch of frog people.
Yeah, and that was cool because, like, it was one of those, well, if you're shooting electricity through a thing, it's not going to just go. It's going to go.
It takes the path of least resistance. Yeah. And then Tommy was also lightning. We were entering a lightning storm in the airship, and I hung off the side of a crane, and I had an ability. I had a power for my talent that allowed me to absorb an element, and I was like,
channel.
I think it's called channel element. Yeah,
channel element.
And I reached up into the sky, and I was like, would you let me do that and then hurl it back at the ship that was tailing us? And the ship was like 1,000 feet away, but you still let me do it.
Yeah, it's cool. It was a dope moment in the game that we want to get art done on.
I want to see it animated. I want to see it animated.
In that case, I think I made you roll a luck check to see if a thing if a bolt came towards you. So, as we mentioned earlier, it's like there's still something.
We're big on luck checks here.
Do it. It's done. It's like, well, what are the odds of things playing out that way properly? What would you need to know? Like, I could have made you roll an Arcana there to see if you could handle the...
And even then, I don't even think Arcana would have been...
Maybe I made you do a Constitution to see if you cop damage as well or something.
I think you gave me... I think you just gave me half the damage.
It was something, yeah, because it's like, it's going through you. You're still copying.
Yeah, like, I'm channeling it, but the problem is that it was like I could channel it, but there was too much.
Yeah.
And I
gave you forewarning that this is sort of going to happen, so it's not just again, aha, you got... Like,
yeah, you got. No, I got mine, but they got theirs too, and I blew their ship up.
It was cool.
It was cool. It was super sick. And I loved it. I think they were both very good points of you doing that effectively.
The Feywild game as well, in the same water encounter with the...
Xena with the ice.
She threw an ice attack at one of the...
one of the little ravines, the grung.
Grung? I love grung. They're the little frog guys, and I had a whole heap painted up like poisonous frogs, and we had a whole extra campaign setting. We might even do a steal this encounter, because I think that was a fun encounter.
That was a fun encounter.
Because it was a combat encounter that wasn't about combat.
It was about surviving.
It was surviving a timed kind of thing, so it was a different thing. But an ice attack was thrown at a grung who was in the water. So I allowed that to hit the grung, but also it froze the 5-foot patch of water. Because it was only short swamp stuff, so I'm like, yep, that'd freeze down to the mud. So we put a little just torn off square of paper, and that was now like a little ice stepping stone. So people, instead of now having to crawl through the water, were trying to jump and hop across this ice stepping stone. But being ice, it's slippery. So we've just introduced, completely unexpectedly, a new skill challenge element at getting through this swamp, which totally changed the way you would have approached, because that was one of the larger stretches of water. I expected you guys to kind of island hop, but that opened a new pathway.
It basically cut the map in half for us for a good segment, which is really good. It's just over there.
Yeah, it was really fun to have that play out. And
fun for them.
Once it was established, though, a couple more were thrown down, I think, as well. So now that that's established, the realization, I can throw this spell down, even not an enemy, to make a pathway.
Yeah, Vinny was face down in the mud the whole time because I was shot with poisonous darts that made me high.
Attacking the stat sheet, my grung encounter.
So I'll throw you guys the idea here. In that one, I had a ton of little grung that just kept popping up out of the water. No matter how many of them the guys killed, each restart of combat, essentially the same amount would come back. Like there were so many of them. The grung could pop underwater and they could travel twice as far and they'd pop up all over the place. But the grung didn't have an attack that did damage. They kind of bombarded all the players with poison darts. And the poison darts kind of zombified the players. Yeah. So players got multiple checks. They got a dexterity saving throw and then a constitution saving throw. If you fail both, you got 1 level of poison. First level sort of slowed you down. Second level, you just don't move. Third level, you zombies start walking into the water. You just go where, you're attracted to water. You need to be in the water, and that gives the grung the ability to tie you up and take you off because they enslave people with their poisons. So it kind of plays in as well because with each level of the poison you get, after the first, you're at disadvantage to save against the next ones. Once you've been hit by 2, you're basically just getting hit by the third unless someone gets in the way.
Yep.
So it kind of escalates, and then all the other players have to get you out of this area. The only way to get past it isn't necessarily by killing them all. I'm sure if there were cool ways you came up with knocking them back or protecting your area, it was about getting everyone up this cliff face and away from the danger.
Yeah.
So a combat encounter that was still combat, but it wasn't deal damage, take damage. And you copped it.
That's what I get for playing a wizard. And now I will never play a full caster again. I'll only ever play a character with 18.
But then Tommy did damage in the next encounter. That was the big heavy combat.
I know that hurt my feelings though. I got every single resistance because my damage rolls were too big. I was like, no, all my big spells, no, and I took whole person instead of whole monster.
But and I think it all plays. That plays into one way to play as well. You don't have to just fight. HP versus HP hit each other. You can change up the game in so many different ways.
Back to magic when wet.
Yeah, magic when wet. So how to apply it to different circumstances, how to apply different rules to the same old things to keep it fresh.
And keep it exciting.
Give us some examples of what you think of how a spell could be played out differently based on the environment.
Yeah, that's true. It's something simple. Something as simple as, some DMs allow spike growth to be burnt away if someone casts a fire spell in that area. Some DMs allow rivers to get frozen with cone of cold, or
Keep talking, I'll be back.
There's other ice spells. Seb's going to find something. Other ice spells. Magic when wet is definitely it is a subject. It is something that definitely, if you are a DM, introduce to your players and see what they think. Or as a player, that if you want to see it, maybe introduce it to your DM. It's not going to be at every table and it's not going to be for everybody. However, in instances where it's a bit more, you run a loosey-goosey system, it can be hella fun. And it'll just give you, it's a new added element of fun and, sometimes you think you're going to do something good and then it ends up being a mistake and then the players have to deal with that mistake. All that stuff is awesome and it's fun. And I think it's just a fun little bit that you can take with you to maybe spice your games up a bit. And maybe even test it in a one-shot to see if you like it. Have a quick little jam out and just add some cool environmental effects that might work with certain magics, and then, your players will be stoked on it, and I think you'll really like it.
I think it's a really cool way to apply the rule of cool as a DM to throw stuff at your players that they weren't even expecting.
Exactly.
So,
Total distraction.
Turtles chasing fish.
Yep. He almost rolled over. What a fool.
I think every episode we're going to get a turtle distraction at least once.
Yeah, nearly every single one. I think the only one that didn't happen was with Sky.
So,
God damn. Yeah, damn it, Orly.
Yeah, hang on. Let's, right here, we have the turtle tank. He's a rescue turtle that I saved from a bird one day, and now he's a part of our set piece.
Oh, God, yeah, he's a little loud Orly, and he's just staring at me like I've done something wrong.
He was the size of a coin when I first got him, and now he's a dinner plate.
Oh, look at him. Look at him. He, like Elmo, has ambush predator eyes. Elmo, he got eyes on top of his head. He's an ambush predator.
Fair.
Let's get back on track. So, more magic when wet.
But yeah, so I think electricity, when cast in a wet situation, should have a buff. Ice should have an effect
On water.
on water.
Fire in greenery.
Should be probably debuffed in a wet situation or tweaked. When in, say, a dry environment, a wooden building, even if you had something like some kind of gaseous situation,
Yeah.
fire should, the same way most of us would imagine that if you cast a fire spell on something that can catch fire, you'll allow it to burn the building down. Mm-hmm. You should be able to do the same with other magical effects.
Yep. I'm also a very big believer in like chemical, composition as well. So like I've had instances where buildings have been burnt down and it's raining, but the building is still burning because it was ignited by a flammable substance, not just fire on wood. Therefore, an alchemical fire, like that's what I mean. Like water doesn't work on particular fires, you know what I mean?
That's why there's like 4 different types of fire extinguisher.
Yeah, I know. Do I fucking know which one's which? No, but it's a thing.
I was a fire warden for 5 years. I can't remember which is which.
No, I can't remember which is which.
It's written on them.
They got pictures on there, I think, somewhere. I think.
We're not here for health and safety. We're here for fantasy.
But, yeah.
I think Magic When Wet is a really fun subject to play with. As a DM, if you've got the time and effort, know your player's spells, or think about what you want to give to your NPCs and how they can affect environments, because it's a really fun way to make things more than what's just written on paper.
Mm-hmm. And it's not something that's also just beneficial to the players. It can be beneficial to you as a dungeon master or a game master to turn it against them.
And it can make combat spells more useful in roleplay and problem-solving circumstances.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
in the same way with that ice thing, in a game that I run, if people had to get across an ice thing and they had 10 spell slots and they could cast ice spells and make themselves some little hop rocks, like Link building up his, if we could do that, yeah, you can use your spell slots to do that.
Yeah, we did it. We had it with one of Sky plays a Warforged in my other campaign, and we had an NPC, a DMPC. I was playing a cleric just to fill the gap while Liam was away, and her character got like muddy and dirty and stuff. So this Tempest cleric grabbed her and then electrocuted her to burn away all the dirt and stuff to clean her.
Why not?
Like, because I thought it was funny. I was like, that would make sense. The electricity would just disintegrate dry dirt. Like,
honestly, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Just if it's fun, and if things don't really affect and break something,
let it happen.
I don't see why not. you
Yeah,
know?
literally. If it's not game breaking, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And occasionally break the game. Put it back together better.
Or different.
Yeah. But again, like I think we mentioned it earlier, if you're going to establish a rule like that an ice spell can freeze a chunk of water that can be hopscotched across, keep that in mind as you go further along.
Yep.
Like in our swamp game, it works because swamps are only meant to be like 4 foot deep. So
Yeah, like up to your
5 foot,
shins or something, yeah.
A 5 foot cube being hit would make sense that it would freeze all the way down to the mud.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me.
Whereas if it's the ocean, it's going to be a real tough thing to jump on that wobbly cube of ice.
Yeah, or like it's like a 1 foot thick plane that's like a 10 foot square, but it's going to be shitty to stand on.
Yeah, so
There's heaps you can do.
you can tweak these up, you can change them and manipulate them based on your circumstances, and that's a good way to retcon certain things and just be like, oh, well, no, in this particular case it worked because of A.
Exactly.
If you can establish a rule set that logically makes sense, there's no reason you can't.
And as a DM, it's something you've just got to be ready for, you know, and sometimes it does happen on the fly. Like last night we had a thing where Monica tried to do something and at first I said no, but I was like, oh no, actually, yeah, that will make sense, and I let it happen. And even Sky acknowledged it. She goes, no, that was also a fair statement on your end as well. You'll, as a game master, you'll figure it out. Eventually you'll just know. But at the end of the day, you are running the game. It is your call. But like I said, I can be bullied to do anything. So
The same way that if a super heavy rules lawyer was at our table and couldn't get past things, maybe they're not for our table.
exactly.
There'll be a table for them. There's people out there that love that style of it.
Playing with a rules lawyer.
if you are one of those rules lawyery style people, have a go at loosening up on that a little bit. I got one of my mates that I got to play for a while, and traditionally in most games, he's a rules lawyer because he loves to win everything. And we used to hate it because when we played games with him, I love the guy that he'd win everything and it would piss us all off. So even if games were like, 4 versus each other, the 3 of the rest of us would just be like, we just can't let him win.
Yeah, the game ends up being stopping him from winning.
Yeah. And he gets so good at things. And then when he came to play D&D, especially the way I run it, it's a lot more story and nuance based than just here are the rule set. He actually really enjoyed it because he couldn't just find the shortcut and speed run it.
Yeah, he couldn't just win.
Yeah. And there's no speed running D&D. Like, that's not the point. It's the same way a lot of people that don't play the game, like, how do you win? It's like, you have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you win at D&D.
Winning at D&D is feeling accomplishment for doing something and figuring out the answer.
Yeah, you don't finish D&D.
You finish a campaign, but you never finish D&D.
And I think a lot of people don't establish that. Oh, we've had a long day, guys.
It has been a long day. Built a table, filmed 2 things. My God, man, I've been up since bloody 6 o'clock. Dog's waking me up.
Well, I guess, how far into this one are we? 45 minutes. This is a good length episode, but on these topics of rule of cool, rules lawyering, playing things a bit differently, any other thoughts or comments?
There's a table for everyone, you just have to find yours.
There's a table for everybody, I think, honestly. But you're not going to know what's going to work until you take the plunge. It is going to be hard. I think the only bit of like real life advice I can say to someone is it's going to be hard the first time you go to a table, especially if it's not with your friends and it's like you're just interjecting into groups like through Discord or through game stores. It is hard matching people's energy and who does what versus who does what. But eventually you will find one and you'll know where your groove is. You'll find your rhythm in the song of the cosmos, which is D&D, in my opinion.
I think that's very well said. Yeah, look, every table's different, every group's different. How people want to apply or approach anything in life is different, so why would this game be any different to that? Mm-hmm. You've just got to find your tribe. I think we've done really well at our table to find a really like-minded group that want to play it the same way and enjoy playing it the same way. And there is no one way to approach this game. Even if you want to break it so far that you're basically playing a different game, there are plenty of other rule sets in TTRPGs. We're not just talking about D&D. I don't think any of them need to be taken to the book. There'll be different levels of people that want to do that and really enjoy that, and all power to you. But there is a lot of rules. There's a lot of nuance to those rules.
There's a lot of engines that have to be running.
Yeah, so allowing it to be a loose guide for you to have a fun story being told collaboratively at a table will just bring you the ability to have more fun with it.
Yeah.
This is a collaborative storytelling role-play situation. It's not meant to be a, here are our rules, now don't you dare step out of line.
Yeah. This isn't Gloomhaven, this is D&D.
I've never played Gloomhaven.
Well, it's a board game, so that one. But there is an RPG coming out, but the board game's got set rules, but people kind of treat them the same.
There are other games like that. Again, if you have a table that want to go rule heavy,
real rule heavy.
I haven't been able to speak for 3 days, guys. I don't know what's going on. If you want to go rules lawyer and heavy on that, I'm sure there's a lot of fun to that. I think your min-maxers and people like that like trying to break it and make themselves the best anything. And, you know, if that's how your players and table want to go, sweet. But don't tell other people they're doing it wrong.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Because there is no doing it wrong. If everyone's having a good time, you're doing it right.
Exactly. You know you're doing it right when everyone's having fun.
Yeah.
And regularly check in with your players. That's how you'll know.
Debriefing with players and stuff as well is a great way to figure out over time of what they want from the game.
Exactly. Just a message every couple of days is always good. Or you can do like me and send a message to your players every day.
And if you want something a little bit different and you know you want it, talk to your DM. I've been talking to Cody today about a few things with my character that I'm bringing in. Some things I know I want to go a certain way. Some things I've said, here's a concept I want to play with. You can take that and run with it or just let it be. Like, back and forth on that stuff will make for a better experience.
Yeah.
Like, and it allows you to nerf yourself sometimes. So I've just taken the Fey touched feet, and due to where we are in campaign, it made sense. I wanted the abilities from it, but it also, I'm like, oh, this works because we're in an area that sort of has that vibe. But what I've said to Cody is, yeah, we've leveled up, but I won't use the abilities from that until you, like, if you want to build it into narrative of that I have an experience that gives me those. So from get-go in the next episode, I won't have access to them, but at some point in the next couple of episodes, I might come across a circumstance that's like, oh, here's how you learned your thing.
I'm working on it.
Well, it doesn't have to play into it, but giving that ability, you know, like...
I'm working on it.
Having some back and forth with your players and your DM above the table allows you to have the story play out better.
It stresses me out. But I persist because I must. Because I have to.
This game can get stressful.
It is. It's stressful every day. It's stressful every day, and I'm just constantly frightened by things.
I put new things down on this table every time we do one of these, and Cody sometimes just suddenly notices, and he's like, "Oh, look!"
I can't. Yeah, I've got to touch him, but it's okay. We're finishing, so I can dawdle now.
Wrap it up. Closing comments.
So let us know, guys. As usual, tell us why we're wrong.
Drop it in the doobly-doo.
Let us know what your thoughts are on this sort of stuff. Are you rules heavy? Are you more leaning into the rule of cool? What's your coolest rule of cool story?
Hell yeah.
I'd love to hear those. And if you have any other questions or comments or something you'd like to see us tackle, just say so below. And the more open dialogue and the more you want to chat to us, the more we'll respond and the more we can figure out how to make these even better.
Yeah. We like it. We like doing it. So get amongst it.
All right, guys. We love you. Thanks for tuning in. Links in the comments. All the usual YouTube stuff. Likes, comments, shares. Hate, love. Give us whatever you need. Till next time.
Cut and black.